Hiya YouTube, Sean Bradley here, and today I will be reviewing It Part 1, The Losers Club, the first part of the long-awaited adaptation of Stephen King's novel, directed by Andy Muschietti. The plot follows the titular Losers Club, led by Bill Denborough, played by Jaeden Lieberher, who live in the fictional town of Derry, Maine in 1989. During the summer, the gang are constantly under threat from Pennywise the Dancing Clown, aka It, played by Bill Skarsgard, a shape-shifting monster that not only turns into things that the children are most afraid of, but is also responsible for a series of disappearances involving children from Derry, one of which is Bill's younger brother Georgie, played by Jackson Robert Scott. With the town under Pennywise's spell and ignorant towards the children, Bill and his friends have no choice but to go down into the sewers and end Pennywise's reign of terror. It was a film that I have been looking forward to practically since I was 10 years old. I was first told of the original miniseries when I was just 9 years old by my brother, who watched it at a friend's house when he was at a sleepover. And I watched the second part, which one of my aunts had taped off of the TV for my brother. And then a year later, I watched the entire miniseries on a DVD that was owned by one of my cousins whilst I was on holiday in America. Me and my brother and my cousins here and stateside developed a love for this story. This was what had made me first hear of the name Stephen King. This was a film that was a long time coming. This is the second adaptation of Stephen King's novel, the first being the Emmy Award-winning TV miniseries from 1990, directed by Tommy Lee Wallace and starring Tim Curry in the role of Pennywise. It was aired in 2 parts over the course of 2 nights and was a major success for the American Broadcasting Company. This adaptation of the novel was in development since 2009, with David Gajkinich adapting the novel for Warner Brothers, who had envisioned the novel as a single feature film. Gajkinich had reread the novel in order to try and find a structure that would accommodate such a large number of characters in 2 different time periods. In 2012, Cary Fukunaga had boarded the project to direct the film and to co-write the script with Chase Palmer. In 2014, Warner Brothers announced that they had moved the film to their New Line Cinema division. In May of 2015, Fukunaga had cast Will Poulter in the role of Pennywise the Dancing Clown, but later in the month, Fukunaga had dropped out of directing duties over creative differences with the studio. 2 months later, Andy Muschietti, known for his debut film 2013's Mama, was in negotiations to direct the film, with New Line beginning to search for a new writer to tailor the script to Muschietti's vision. Muschietti had used the script written by Fukunaga and Palmer, with some rewrites by Gary Dauberman. Despite the film finding a new director, it also loses a lead in actor Will Poulter, who had dropped out due to a scheduling conflict, leading the filmmakers to recast Poulter's role, and eventually ended up casting Bill Skarsgard in the role of Pennywise the Dancing Clown. So I went into this film hearing rave reviews about it. I was so excited to see this film, knowing of my love for the original. I also saw this film in IMAX at the Printworks, and I had booked me and my brother right in the middle of the cinema so that it looks as if Pennywise was just coming right at us. Just right at us. And I absolutely enjoyed this film. There was a small percentage of dull moments, but they don't linger on it. They end up cutting to the next suspenseful scene. I urge you to leave your knowledge of the original miniseries at the door, because this is not a remake of the miniseries, it is a second adaptation of the novel. Now, this is a standalone film, so it only depicts the protagonists as children. Unlike the novel and the miniseries, where the first part is told through flashbacks with the framing device of the character of Mike Hanlon contacting the adult versions of the Losers Club to tell them that it has come back. I have not read much of the original novel by Stephen King. It is a very long book, with some parts that are just overly detailed. So, but I will get round to reading this. I'm going to finish this. Now on to Andy Muschietti's direction. This film ups the ante in comparison to the original miniseries. It is rated 15 by the British Board of Film Classification, just like the original miniseries. So I was a bit worried at first that it would be censored and cut down and it wouldn't really get away with as much. Like the original miniseries was just cut down due to regulations with television. And it does up the ante, including the famous scene involving Georgie Denborough, Bill's younger brother. Unlike the miniseries, which just leaves it up to the imagination of the audience, the film just goes out there and actually shows Georgie getting his hand ripped off by Pennywise, right? Who's now got these, like, CGI teeth underneath his real teeth. Like something out of Alien 3. Blood is just leaking into the rain puddles, and Georgie is just trying to crawl away before getting dragged into the sewer. Even though many people have read the book or watched the miniseries and know what will happen to the characters, it still can be effective due to the way that this film is told, the way that the story is told. There are many differences between the miniseries and the film, and because of the format that this material is being adapted to, like I said before, the filmmakers are allowed to get away with a lot more than what the miniseries did. You actually see Georgie get his hand ripped off. There's a scene where the school bully Henry Bowers, played by Nicholas Hamilton, carves an H into Ben Hanscom's stomach before Ben can manage to get away, and there's also a subplot involving Beverly Marsh, who is being sexually abused by her father. Now, they don't really go too far with that, but there's implications, and there's even an attempt later on through the film. But Andy Muschietti even stated that some of the manifestations of it that are encountered by the Losers Club throughout the novel had to be changed in this film in order to make the terrors more surprising, even to those that have read the novel. And this film even loses the dialogue that was at the beginning of the official trailer. And if you don't know which one I'm talking about, it's this.
When you're a kid, you think the universe revolves around you. You think that you'll always be protected and cared for. Then, one day, you realize that's not true. Because when you're alone as a kid, the monsters see you as weaker. You don't even know they're getting closer. Till it's too late.
One of the film's major changes is moving the time period from the 1950s, which was when the book took place, to the late 1980s, 1989 to be specific. With that comes changes in the adaptation in order to fit the time period. So, for example, it is described by Mark Kermode as a cine-literate film. There's loads of posters all over the place for Beetlejuice, Batman, Lethal Weapon 2, and A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. And there's also just basically even references to music. Like, there's a scene where Ben, like, invites all the Losers Club to his house, and in his room, he's got a New Kids on the Block poster, and he's even just quoting the songs. And it has elements of creepiness. This film has elements of creepiness. It has a creepy atmosphere, but will most of the time just throw jump scares at you. For example, there's a scene where Richie is in this room full of all these clowns, and it will just come out and just go and that's a jump scare. And there's even like loads of these clown dolls. There's even a clown in the room that looks like the original Pennywise from the 1990 miniseries. The cinematography is great. It will not use a filter to make the picture look darker, like you would see in many modern horror films nowadays. It takes place during the summer, and you can get a feel of the atmosphere in the scenes where the characters are sitting outside, and the clothing that they wear 80s clothes with like shorts, and there's even a scene where they go down to the quarry to go swimming, and they're diving off the rocks into the pool, and there is just that atmosphere of positivity. They're enjoying themselves, they're loving life, they're enjoying the sunshine. So now on to the performances, starting with Bill Skarsgard as Pennywise. When people first saw Tim Curry in the role of Pennywise, they were terrified by his performance, and it has been one of the actor's most famous roles. However, as the years went by, many seemed to see through the performance, and the fear factor seemed to wear off, including the Nostalgia Critic doing a review of the original miniseries back in 2010, poking fun at the hokiness of the miniseries.
Maybe it's because I'm drunk or something, but Tim Curry's a riot. Were people really scared by this guy? He's hilarious. I don't even think his scene is supposed to be this long. I think he just decided to stay on set and annoy everybody.
The Nostalgia Critic will also be doing a clipless review of this adaptation for this year's Nostalgia-ween. Bill Skarsgard's performance is haunting. While most of Curry's performance in the miniseries is iconic, Skarsgard just knocked it out of the park. He looks creepy, even in real life. Then there is that voice. That voice sounds cartoony and otherworldly.
Hiya, Georgie. What a nice boat. Do you want it back?
Yes, please.
You look like a nice boy. Do you want a balloon too, Georgie?
I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers.
Oh, well, I'm Pennywise the dancing clown. Now we aren't strangers, are we?
That voice just sounds cartoony but otherworldly, and it sounds foreign, which is a bit obvious as Skarsgård is Swedish. However, there are times where he sounds like the Joker from The Dark Knight. He sounds like a raving lunatic. The way that he moves in some scenes is very otherworldly, like he's contorting his limbs when he walks. There's a scene where he goes after Bill and he is just flailing his arms around and rapidly shaking his head and doing these hollering noises like a turkey. The performances by the Losers Club was great. Jaeden Lieberher was great as Bill, and Sophia Lillis was great as Beverly, and she has a lot to do with her character. The characters of Mike and Ben did not have a lot of focus in the film, as there probably wasn't enough time. There's even Stan, who is the one that is affected by Pennywise the most, judging by what happens in part 2, and I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't either read the book or watched the miniseries. This film is 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and they have a lot to get through in a film that adapts only half of the novel. This adaptation also gives some dimension to the character of Henry Bowers as opposed to the original miniseries, which portrays him as a two-dimensional bully. The character of Eddie Kaspbrak is given more depth as opposed to the miniseries. That incarnation was living with an overprotective mother, while in this adaptation he is being manipulated by his mother. Although the performance is subtle in the miniseries, here he is a walking statistics book. It talks about how many people contract diseases and the number of accidents and many other stuff that would make you think you were watching Rain Man.
Delta, how's Delta? The Delta crashed August 2nd, 1985, Lockheed L-1011, Dallas, Fort Worth. Terrible wind chill.
All airlines.
135 passengers.
All airlines have crashed at one time or another. That doesn't mean that they are not safe.
While Bill Skarsgard is a standout performance, another standout performance is Finn Wolfhard as Richie Tozier. He is very funny as the comic relief of the club who makes jokes at the expense of the other characters. He would not even believe any of this it stuff until it all starts going down. I liked his performance in this film as well as his appearance as Mike Wheeler in the Netflix original series Stranger Things. The effects in the film are good, despite most of them coming off as just obvious CGI. The music by Benjamin Wallfish is great, coming off at times as eerie, with the old nursery rhyme Oranges and Lemons being included into the mix, sung in a creepy way by children, while some sentimental scenes are accompanied by soft music from instruments like the piano. This film has been given rave reviews from critics, stating that it is the best of the adaptations of Stephen King's works. It had an 87% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, certified fresh with an average rating of 7.2 out of 10. So to sum up, It Part 1, The Losers Club, is brilliant and an excellent adaptation of Stephen King's novel that tries to differentiate itself between the book and the miniseries. Bill Skarsgard is terrifying as Pennywise the Dancing Clown, while the child actors are great, with Finn Wolfhard being a standout amongst them. The music is both eerie and beautiful at points. The effects are great with its gore elements, while the CGI elements look a little obvious. Though it may come off in the trailer as a film that is laden with jump scares, the finished film is not your average modern day horror film. Like I said earlier, I have been looking forward to this film since I was probably 10 years old, and I thought that it was worth the wait. I give this film a 9 out of 10. So before I go, I'm going to give my suggestions to the casting of the adult versions of The Losers Club in It Chapter 2. So for Bill, I was thinking either Johnny Depp or Leonardo DiCaprio. Both actors are great, and Johnny Depp might be able to pull it off, but so will Leonardo DiCaprio. They both have range. For the role of Beverly Marsh, I was thinking of Isla Fisher. She looks like Sophia Lillis, and therefore, and she does a good American accent. She's Australian, but she does do a good American accent, and that would work. That would help. I mean, that would enhance the performance. For the role of Ben Hanscom, I was thinking that the ideal casting would be Chris Pratt, because Chris Pratt was originally chubby, but then when it came to like Guardians of the Galaxy and Jurassic World, he really buffed up. So and in Part 2, he ends up losing all that weight. So that would be great.
For the role of Richie Tozier, my first choice was Zac Efron. But when other people commented on the list that I posted on Facebook, objecting that Zac Efron was too young for the role of Richie, I panicked and went for Seth MacFarlane instead.
He's a comedian playing a comedian, so that would tend to work.
For the role of Eddie Kaspbrak, I was thinking of Neil Patrick Harris.
Because, you know, there is some hints and implications in the book that Eddie might be a homosexual, and Harris might be able to pull some of that off due to his sexuality.
I was thinking that for the role of Mike Hanlon, that Chiwetel Ejiofor would be strongly suited.
He must be in his 40s now, and that is the age range of the characters when they come back to Derry 27 years later.
And for Stan, I'm thinking of going with Colin Hanks.
I'm not sure what he will contribute to the role, but he won't be around for part 2 much, so it's not going to matter much. And that's my casting suggestions for part 2. If you like, you can leave your casting suggestions in the comments down below. This is Sean Bradley signing out. I'll see you later. Bye!